Has the Earl Watson trade watch begun? The Thunder point guard has denied that he's asked to be traded or that he wants to be traded. From the Dodge Sports Desk, I'm Mike Sherman, and this is Bringing the Thunder with Darnell Mayberry. Darnell, the New York Daily News' Mitch Lawrence reported over the weekend that Earl Watson feels like he's trapped behind Russell Westbrook and would like to be traded. Lawrence even had a team in mind, the New Orleans Hornets, who really don't have much behind Chris Paul. What do you make of all this Earl Watson trade talk?
Not much. I mean, it was a one-liner in Mitch Lawrence's Sunday column, NBA column. You know, he basically said he wants out. He's stuck behind Russell Westbrook, which is not true. He's the starter. He averages, I think he's third or fourth on the team in minutes played so far this season, Earl Watson. So he's getting good minutes. I think he's up there in the 28 minutes per game range. He's playing above Russell Westbrook. So, you know, he's in sort of a good situation. Now, I will say that in terms of wanting out, he, like you said, he denied that he wanted out. But you got to admit that a lot of players on this team are frustrated. They're 1-6. The guys who were here last year went through a bad season. They don't want to be, no one wants to lose. If you're in the NBA, you're a competitor. No one wants to lose. So Earl Watson is as competitive as they come on this team from what I've seen. So, you know, he wants to be on a winning team. All of them do. So there's a lot of frustration from the fact that this team is losing. But, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that he wants out.
Reading the quotes that you had in News OK and also in the Oklahoman, it really, reading between the lines, it was maybe I wouldn't mind if I got traded. Earl Watson said something about, right now all he's thinking about is the holidays. And that seemed like, okay, let me just get through the holidays and then it's okay to move me. Why wouldn't Earl Watson want to be traded? Let's look at his situation. He's a veteran point guard who just got drafted over. You know, they just drafted a rookie point guard, fourth pick in the draft. Can he see down the road and think, hey, at some point, this is the guy they want to be the point guard. And if I'm going to be a backup, I might as well be a backup on a team, on a winning team, on a contending team.
Right, you definitely want to be on a winning team. In New Orleans, a lot of people are picking, you know, I don't know where Mitch Lawrence got that New Orleans angle from. I mean, Chris Paul plays 38, 40 minutes a game. I mean, he's the guy there. So I don't know, you know, a year or two from now, why you wouldn't want to play behind Russell Westbrook rather than Chris Paul when he plays the majority of minutes. This is a good situation. I don't see much better situations for a guy like Earl Watson around the league. I mean, this is a pretty good situation that he's in, aside from the losing and the rebuilding that this team is going through.
Let me throw out a possibility here. What if it is a situation like with Chris Paul in New Orleans? Here's what happened last year. Jannero Pargo played that role. He played sometimes with Chris Paul. They won 56 games or something like that. They got a playoff check, which is not going to be forthcoming this year in Oklahoma City. And Pargo then went on and parlayed that into a contract. He's overseas now, right?
Yeah, in Russia.
In Russia. Well, I mean, he got paid, and he also got to play on an exciting team and do some things. That's all I'm saying is, it doesn't make Earl Watson to be a bad guy to want to move on to a different situation. And if the future is Russell Westbrook, then maybe Watson's not a gray beard here.
Right. And again, I mean, just to be clear, no one wants to lose, and this team is going through a tough stretch right now. So Earl is not the only guy who's, you know, is he frustrated? Sure. Does he want to be traded? He said he does not. But I wouldn't be surprised if you hear other guys. I mean, if they're asked about it, nobody wants to be stuck in a situation where you're losing. So I wouldn't just put this on Earl Watson.
Okay. Early season trades, they're rare in the NBA. I mean, there was the Allen Iverson, Chauncey Billups trade last week. Last year, there was one or two trades really before December. Why are they rare?
You know, teams like to see what they have before they make trades and make moves. They like to get in the season 25, 30 games before, you know, sort of breaking up the chemistry, breaking up their roster, and trying to make themselves better. In order to make yourself better, you have to see what you have before you decide to make deals. So, you know, I think that's probably what you're going to see with the Thunder. You're going to have to wait until, you know, a lot of people, even on our live blogs during the game, are asking, is Chris Wilcox going to be around? Is Desmond Mason and Joe Smith, are they going to be around? You know, and my answer to them is wait and see. You know, Sam Presti is a guy who likes to see what he has first and likes to sort of look at things from all angles before he makes decisions. So I think closer to February is when you might see some moves happening with this team.
The market really hasn't established itself in the league either. I mean, but what is interesting for new NBA fans in Oklahoma City is how much trade talk there is out there. I mean, it's rampant. It's like baseball trade talk. There's all these deals. You got Al Harrington in Golden State. You got the uncertainty of the Knicks situation. You've got contending teams looking for auxiliary pieces.
Jamal Tinsley
in Indiana. So there's all these names flying around. And as you said, Mitch Lawrence, a guy who sort of lives on the grapevine or on the rumor mill, and has a lot of notes in the New York Daily News, threw Watson out as one of several notes that he had. So it wasn't like, hey, big headline, Earl Watson wants to be traded. It seemed to me, looked like he'd been talking to somebody's agent or agents.
It's possible.
And maybe not even Earl Watson's agent. Hey, listen, let's go back on the court. The Thunder plays at home against the Magic. Next 3 games, Magic, Knicks, Sixers, 3 Eastern Conference teams, Darnell, that score a lot. 2 of the 3 really like to get up and down the court. What could these opponents bring out in the Thunder?
I think it's going to be interesting to see how this Thunder team handles that pressure. Their transition defense is going to be key. We've been talking about defense all preseason and so far this regular season, and PJ so far is happy with where this team is defensively. Well, these teams are going to put pressure on them defensively with their running game. So can the Thunder handle that transition defense? I mean, are they equipped to handle teams that like to get up and down the floor and run and push the basketball?
Last year, this team or this franchise started 0-8. They're 1-6 now. But if you just look at the changes, it looked like last year they went ahead and said, okay, you want to get up and down the court? We'll score with you.
Yeah.
And they lost a lot of 125 to 110 games. They played some pretty exciting basketball, but at the end of the day, they ended up losing 10 and 12-point games. Not that much difference in the gap as far or the record, but as you said, the defense is a whole different look. I mean, just a totally different defense. Is that because long-term, the folks who run this franchise says this is the way to victories?
Yeah, I mean, when you go back to Sam Presti and PJ Carlesimo, these guys came from San Antonio, Greg Popovich, R.C. Buford. That's the way they built that team down in San Antonio, and that's what you're going to see with this Thunder team. Now, for the fans' sake, that might not be the best. You might not want to see 89 to 81 ball games, but the San Antonio Spurs have 3 championships to show for it, and if that is the model that the Thunder feels is best way to win, then that's what you're going to see.
Interesting, though, this team, from an offensive standpoint, looks much more confident, much more fluid, much more watchable, really, when they're playing in an open court style. That was the good start at Indiana, the second half at Utah, and really the whole game, for the most part, the whole game against Atlanta, except
and even
for
going back to Houston, when they pushed the ball against Yao Ming and the Rockets, they were up and down.
They came out and ran them. So that is a hard thing, and that really, as you say, if they're going to play that way, then transition defense has got to be the deal. Okay, let's talk about shooting. Lots been talked about. PJ, in one of the recent home games, especially against the Celtics, said we took the shots that Doc Rivers wanted us to take and not the shots we wanted to take. He felt like they were settling for tough jumpers, maybe late in the shot clock, instead of taking the ball to the rim. And it's difficult getting the ball to the rim right now for this team. What's happening?
Well, PJ, I had a conversation with him at the shoot-around before tonight's Orlando Magic game. He's basically saying that teams are packing in the lane. They're daring the Thunder to shoot. They don't respect any of the Thunder's jump shooters. And so far, they've been proven right. I mean, they haven't earned the respect of teams. So that's how you're going to see teams play the Thunder this season. He had a quote where he said, Jeff Green and some guys are looking at him on the bench when he's telling them to drive, and they're looking at him like, drive where? There are 4 guys in the lane. Where do you want me to drive? So if teams are going to challenge them to shoot, they're professional athletes. They're NBA players, and they're saying, hey, I can make this shot. I've made it throughout my entire life. So I'm going to take this shot, and I'm going to prove to you that I can make it, not just to the coach, but to the opponent.
So there's not very much in the way of three-point shooting threats, but it sounds like what they really need to develop is their consistent 12 and 15 mid-range jumpers and hit them, at least bring them out that far.
Exactly. If you do that, that frees up the lane, the paint for Earl Watson, for Russell Westbrook, for even Kevin Durant. So it's too many eyes focused on Kevin Durant and their point guards, preventing them from getting into the lane. And that's why you're seeing so many jump shots, and they don't have a post presence. It'd be so much easier if you had a post presence where that commanded a double team. So your jump shooters do have open shots. And right now, I mean, it's just so, there's so many weaknesses on this team, just to be frank, that they don't have the weapons to help their shooters out right now.
Kevin Durant in the last 2 games, however, was attracting the double team. Mm-hmm. You know, the ball go to him over in the wing, and you'd see the Hawks send 2 people. Yep. You'd send, and help was coming from baseline. So that could have an interesting dilemma. Also, Durant, I mean, the last 2 games, even though maybe not sustained throughout the Hawks game, but definitely Indiana, an incredible scoring game. We started to see the guy that really the folks out here in Big 12 land had seen that 2 years ago when he was in burnt orange for Texas. Who else is emerging in your mind for the Thunder?
I think you have to look at a guy like Jeff Green. I mean, his field goal percentage, his three-point percentage, I think, is up there near 50% so far this year. Not only that, but he's doing a lot of other things. He's rebounding, he's passing well, he's playing great defense. He had a tough matchup against Indiana with Jarrett Jack trying to guard a point guard, and they had to switch that off of him. But, I mean, he's doing all the little things that you look for him to do, and he's sort of showing why they think that he's a perfect complement to Kevin Durant. I think his numbers will go up later on this month and as the season progresses. But he's a guy that is really beginning to emerge, and you can start to see him get more comfortable with the passing of each game.
About Jeff Green, one interesting thing is, that matchup with Jarrett Jack didn't look wise. But it was interesting to see that they have such confidence in his ability to defend that he guards. Jarrett Jack's a point guard, so he's going to defend 1 through 4, and really in the right kind of lineup, maybe even a 5. That shows his versatility. Now, he wasn't succeeding, and I don't think he can stay on that. But that helps if they're pick-and-roll defenses and things like that down the road. Mm-hmm. And if this is a learning season, which it looks pretty much like it is, that's an interesting little thing for the Thunder to have in their toolkit. Anybody else emerging in your mind?
The other guy that I'd point to is Robert Swift. I mean, he's a guy who got into the game against Atlanta because Chris Wilcox left with that knee injury. He came out, and he knew he was going to get minutes against Indiana on Monday, and he made the most of those minutes. He almost had a double-double. So he's going to play again in this next stretch while they're going to have Chris Wilcox sidelined. So he's a guy who's going to be tough on the inside with rebounding and defense. He's active. He moves well for as big as he is. And, I think a team official told me this morning that he could change this season for the Thunder. I'm not ready to go that far, but, I mean, he is a valuable player that this front line does need.
And interesting, he's also going to, Dwight Howard on Wednesday night, but then he's going to have to play in the open court. It's going to be interesting to see whether a guy who has really not played much in his NBA career, whether he can handle maybe double the minutes. But he was around the ball a ton, and he was also very, as you said, very, very productive. That's intriguing, that comment about he could change the season. Looks like a season that could use a little changing right now. Hey, listen, thanks, Darnell. But there's 3 good ways to keep up with all the news and analysis on the Thunder. First, check out Darnell's daily blog, Thunder Rumblings, on News OK. Second, check in on News OK all day. And 3, pick up a copy of the New Look Oklahoman, which on Sunday features Mike Baldwin's new NBA Insider package.
Let's see it.